In a shocking turn of events at Mountain Lake's peaceful fishing dock, what started as simple intimidation by a notorious biker gang led to one of the most unexpected confrontations anyone could imagine. When the Steel Vipers motorcycle gang rolled up to harass what they thought was just another quiet woman fishing alone, they had no idea they were about to challenge one of the military's most lethal Special Forces veterans. Staff Sergeant Emily Anderson, with 3 combat tours and countless life-or-death situations under her belt, was about to teach these arrogant bikers a lesson they'd never forget. What happened next left witnesses stunned and changed the lives of everyone involved forever. The morning mist still clung to the surface of Mountain Lake as Emily Anderson arranged her fishing gear with military precision. Her movements were deliberate, each piece of equipment placed exactly where it needed to be. 15 years of Special Forces training had ingrained these habits deep within her, even on what was supposed to be a peaceful morning of fishing. Old Tom approached, his weathered tackle box swinging gently at his side. "Morning, Emily. Fish are biting early today." Emily smiled, genuinely happy to see the Vietnam veteran who had become something of a father figure to her since she'd started coming to this spot. "Morning, Tom. How's that shoulder doing with those exercises I showed you?" "Better than it's been in years," Tom replied, setting up his gear nearby. "Military medicine sure comes in handy. Speaking of which, you sleep any better?" Emily's smile faded slightly. "Some nights are better than others, but this place, it helps. Something about the water." The peaceful morning air carried the gentle lapping of waves against the dock posts, the occasional splash of jumping fish, and the soft calls of early morning birds. This was why Emily came here. After 3 tours and countless missions that still haunted her dreams, the quiet of Mountain Lake was the only thing that seemed to calm the storm in her mind. Jenny from the bait shop walked down the dock carrying fresh coffee. "Thought you two might need this," she said, handing them each a steaming cup. "Supposed to be a beautiful day." The sound came then, distant at first but growing louder with each passing second. The rumble of multiple motorcycles, their engines deliberately loud, shattering the morning peace. Emily's hand tensed slightly around her coffee cup, muscle memory from years of combat alerting her to potential threat. "Those'll be the Steel Vipers," Tom muttered, his voice dropping. "They've been causing trouble up and down the lake lately, harassing folks, acting like they own the place." Emily watched as 8 motorcycles rolled into the parking area, their chrome gleaming in the morning sun. The riders were clad in matching leather cuts, each bearing the emblem of a coiled viper ready to strike. Their leader, a tall man with a closely trimmed beard and cold eyes, dismounted first. "Well, well," the leader announced, his voice carrying across the dock. "What do we have here? Looks like prime fishing spot going to waste on these locals." His second in command, a muscular man with a shaved head, laughed. "Maybe we should show them how to properly use it, eh, Marcus?" Several other fishermen began packing up their gear, throwing nervous glances at the bikers. Emily remained seated, calmly sipping her coffee, though her trained eyes never stopped assessing the situation. 8 men, all physically fit, likely armed with at least knives. The leader, Marcus, carried himself with the swagger of someone used to getting his way through intimidation. "You don't have to stay," Emily said quietly to Tom. "This might get interesting." Tom shook his head. "I was in Vietnam, kid. I don't scare easy. Besides, someone's got to have your back." Emily smiled, though her eyes remained focused on the approaching bikers. "I appreciate that, Tom. But trust me, I've got this." The bikers spread out along the dock, deliberately taking up more space than necessary. Marcus stopped near Emily, looking down at her with a smirk. "Nice spot you've got here, sweetheart. Mind sharing?" Emily didn't look up from her fishing line. "Plenty of dock to go around. Just keep the noise down, you're scaring the fish." A tense silence fell over the dock. The other fishermen who hadn't left watched with bated breath. Marcus's smirk twisted into something darker. "I don't think you understand how this works, lady. When the Steel Vipers show up, you clear out." Now Emily did look up, her green eyes meeting Marcus's with a calm that came from facing far worse threats than him. Actually, she said, her voice steady, I don't think you understand how this works. This is public property, maintained by the Parks Department, and you're disrupting a designated quiet zone. One of the bikers, a massive man they called Tank, stepped forward, deliberately kicking her tackle box. Fishing lures and gear scattered across the wooden planks. Oops, he sneered. Guess you should have moved when you had the chance. Emily stood slowly, her movement fluid and controlled. Those who knew what to look for would have recognized the stance of a trained fighter, but to the bikers, she was just another woman they could intimidate. That, she said calmly, was a mistake. Marcus stepped closer to Emily, using his height to try to intimidate her. Oh yeah? And what exactly are you going to do about it, sweetheart? Emily remained perfectly still, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone used to commanding in combat situations. First, you're going to pick up that tackle box and apologize. Then, you're going to lower your voices or move to another spot. Those are your options. The bikers erupted in laughter, but one of them, Mike Ghost Wilson, noticed something about her stance that made him pause. His eyes caught the glint of dog tags beneath her jacket. Boss, Mike said quietly, hold up a second. Marcus ignored him, too focused on establishing dominance. You giving me orders? In case you haven't noticed, there's 8 of us and 1 of you. 2, Tom spoke up, standing beside Emily. Make that 2 of us. Tank moved forward, cracking his knuckles. Old man, stay out of this before you get hurt. Emily's voice cut through the tension. I'm going to say this one more time. Pick up the tackle box, apologize, and we can all enjoy a peaceful morning of fishing. Or what? Tank sneered, reaching out to shove her. What happened next was so fast that most of the observers had trouble following it. As Tank's hand moved toward Emily, she shifted slightly, grabbing his wrist and using his own momentum to send him flying over her hip. Tank landed hard on the dock, the impact knocking the wind from his lungs. Before the other bikers could react, Emily had him in a joint lock, her grip precise and practiced. Like I said, Emily stated calmly, maintaining the hold without apparent effort. That was a mistake. Mike stepped forward, hands raised. Stand down, brothers. I served, 82nd Airborne. Those are Ranger moves. She's the real deal. Marcus's face showed confusion turning to realization. You're military? Staff Sergeant Emily Anderson, Special Forces. 3 tours, combat medic. She released Tank, who rolled away, gasping and clutching his arm. Now, would you like to try this again? The atmosphere on the dock shifted. Mike's revelation and Emily's demonstration had changed the dynamic completely. Marcus looked at his crew, noting their uncertainty, then back at Emily. Special Forces? Marcus's tone had lost its mocking edge. My old man was Special Forces, Vietnam. Then you should know better, Emily replied. We're taught to de-escalate first. Force is always the last resort. Marcus's expression changed, showing the first hints of genuine respect. Tank, pick up the lady's tackle box. Tank, still rubbing his arm, hesitated but complied, gathering the scattered fishing gear. The other bikers watched in silence, their earlier bravado replaced with a mix of respect and wariness. Sorry about your gear, Tank muttered, genuine embarrassment in his voice. Emily nodded, accepting the apology. No harm done. Like I said, there's plenty of dock for everyone. Mike stepped closer, his manner different from the other bikers. If you don't mind me asking, Staff Sergeant, which unit? 20th Group, Emily replied. You? 82nd. 2 tours in Afghanistan. Mike shook his head, a slight smile on his face. Should have known better than to roll up on a fellow vet like this. Marcus watched this exchange, his swagger replaced by something more thoughtful. My father, he didn't talk much about his service, but he always said you could trust a Special Forces soldier with your life. Your father was right, Emily said. We're trained to protect, not intimidate. The strength comes from knowing when not to use force. The other bikers began to relax, their aggressive postures softening. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. If you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely don't want to miss. Jenny, who had been watching nervously from the bait shop, cautiously approached with more coffee. "Anyone else need a cup?" she offered, her voice still slightly shaky. Marcus looked at his crew, then back at Emily. "Mind if we join you? Might be nice to hear some stories about the service. If you're willing to share, that is." Emily gestured to the open spots on the dock. "Grab some gear from Jenny's shop. I've got extra lures if you need them." As the bikers dispersed to get fishing equipment, Tom leaned closer to Emily. "That was something else, kid. You handled that perfectly." Emily smiled, though her eyes remained alert. Sometimes the best way to stop a fight is to show them there's a better way to handle things. Besides, if they're really veterans kids, they should understand what this place means to us. The morning sun had risen higher, burning away the last of the mist. The sound of motorcycle engines was replaced by the gentle splash of fishing lines hitting the water. A transformation was beginning on that dock, though none of them fully realized it yet. The tension from earlier had dissipated into an uneasy calm as the bikers settled along the dock. Marcus sat near Emily, his movements more measured now, less aggressive. Tank was still rubbing his arm, casting occasional glances at Emily that mixed respect with lingering embarrassment. "Your technique," Mike said, setting up his borrowed fishing rod. "That was straight out of advanced combat training. Clean execution." Emily nodded, recasting her line. "Sometimes the best way to end a fight is to show your opponent they can't win without actually hurting them." "My dad used to say something similar," Marcus added quietly. "Before he passed last year. Said the strongest warriors are the ones who know how to avoid the fight." The revelation hung in the air, adding context to Marcus's aggressive behavior. Emily studied him for a moment before responding. "Loss can make us lash out, make us want to prove something, but it doesn't honor their memory." Marcus's jaw tightened, but his eyes showed a flicker of understanding. He was in Vietnam, Special Forces. Never talked much about it, but those last few months, he started opening up, told me things that kept him up at night. "That's common," Emily replied, her voice softening. "We carry things back with us, things that aren't easy to share with people who haven't been there." Tom nodded from his spot. "Took me 30 years to really talk about Vietnam. Sometimes this doc's been more therapy than any VA session." The other bikers had grown quiet, listening to the conversation. Derek, Marcus's second-in-command, broke the silence. "That why you come here, Staff Sergeant? To find peace?" "The water helps," Emily said, watching her line. "No expectations, no judgments. Just the rhythm of the waves, and the patience of waiting for a bite." Tank, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. "My brother was military, Marines, didn't come back from his last tour. I guess I've been angry ever since." Emily turned to look at him, seeing past the tough exterior to the pain beneath. Anger's easier than grief, but it doesn't heal anything. Jenny appeared with more coffee and some sandwiches from the bait shop. "Thought you all might be hungry," she said, her earlier fear replaced by cautious friendliness. As the food was passed around, the conversation shifted. Mike shared stories about his time in the 82nd Airborne, and other bikers began opening up about their own connections to military service, brothers, sisters, parents who had served. "You know," Emily said, adjusting her line, "there's a veterans support group that meets at the community center, not just for vets, but for families too. People who understand what it's like to love someone who's served." Marcus looked at her sharply. "You think we need therapy?" "I think everyone needs someone who understands," Emily replied calmly. "That's why I come here. That's why Tom comes here. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit you're carrying something too heavy to bear alone." A fish tugged at Tank's line, breaking the serious moment. He struggled with the reel, unused to the motion. Emily moved to help him, showing him how to play the fish without losing it. "Easy," she guided. "It's not about strength. It's about patience and technique. Let the fish tire itself out. The parallel wasn't lost on anyone. Tank followed her instructions, and soon they were pulling in a decent-sized bass. His face lit up with genuine pleasure, perhaps the first real smile he'd shown all morning. "Nice catch," Emily said, helping him unhook the fish. "Want to keep it or release it?" Tank looked at the fish, then at the water. "Release it, I guess. Seems fair to let it have another chance." The symbolism of the moment hung in the air as Tank gently released the base back into the lake. The other bikers watched, something shifting in their collective understanding. "You know," Marcus said, his voice thoughtful, "we've been coming to this lake, causing trouble, trying to prove something, but maybe we've been missing the point." Emily cast her line again, the motion smooth and practiced. "Sometimes we're so busy trying to show our strength that we miss the chance to actually be strong." Derek nodded slowly. "Like your move with Tank earlier. You could have hurt him, but you chose not to." "Because the goal wasn't to hurt him," Emily replied. "It was to stop the situation from escalating. In combat, we learned that the best victory is the one where nobody gets hurt." The morning had warmed considerably, and the dock was now filled with the mixed sounds of quiet conversation, fishing reels, and the occasional splash. The biker's leather cut seemed less threatening now, more like a uniform that needed a new meaning. "Staff Sergeant," Mike said suddenly, "we've got this veterans ride coming up next month, raising money for the VA hospital. Maybe you'd be interested in helping us organize it? Make it something meaningful?" Emily considered Mike's suggestion, her eyes still on the water. "A veterans ride? Tell me more about it." Marcus shifted forward, suddenly animated. "We do it every year, but honestly it's been more about showing off bikes than actually helping vets. Maybe we've been approaching it wrong." "Like everything else," Tank muttered, still focused on his fishing line but clearly listening. "The VA hospital could use more than just money," Emily said thoughtfully. "They need volunteers, people who understand what veterans go through, people who can be there consistently." Tom chimed in from his spot. "And not just the hospital. Got a lot of vets in the area who could use help with basic things, home repairs, transportation to appointments, sometimes just someone to talk to." The bikers exchanged glances, a new purpose beginning to form in their minds. Derek leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "We've got the manpower," he said. "Got the bikes. Could organize regular rides to help vets get to appointments. Could do maintenance work too," added another biker who had introduced himself as Wrench. "Most of us are good with tools. Been wasting those skills causing trouble instead of helping." Emily nodded approvingly. "That's the kind of strength that actually means something. Using what you have to lift others up instead of pushing them down." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then spoke softly. "My old man, before he passed, he always said he wished he'd done more to help his brothers after Nam. Said too many of them fought their battles alone." "It's never too late to honor his memory by doing what he wished he could," Emily replied, her voice gentle but firm. Jenny, who had been listening from nearby, stepped closer. "The bait shop could be a collection point for donations. A lot of veterans come through here already." The morning sun was high now, creating diamonds on the water's surface. The dock had become more than just a fishing spot. It was turning into a place of transformation. "You know what else we could do?" Tank said suddenly. "We could teach kids to fish. A lot of military kids around here, parents deployed. Give them something steady, something peaceful." Emily smiled, seeing the genuine enthusiasm in the man who, just hours ago, had tried to intimidate her. "That's actually a great idea. The routine, the patience it teaches. It can be really therapeutic." Mike nodded enthusiastically. "Could partner with the local military base, set up regular events, Steel Vipers giving back instead of causing fear." "Might need a new name," Marcus mused, looking at the emblem on his cut. "Steel Vipers doesn't exactly say community service." "Steel Veterans," Derek suggested. "Keep the strength, but give it purpose." The idea seemed to resonate with the group. Even the quieter members were nodding, seeing a new direction for their brotherhood. "Of course," Emily added, reeling in her line to check the bait. "This means you'll have to learn to fish properly. Can't teach kids if you don't know what you're doing." Tank laughed, a genuine sound that surprised everyone. "You offering to teach us, Staff Sergeant?" "Could be arranged," Emily replied with a slight smile. "Though after that tackle box incident, you might have to earn it." The atmosphere had completely transformed from the tense confrontation of earlier. The bikers were now engaged in serious discussion about community service, their earlier aggression replaced with purposeful energy. "You know," Marcus said, looking at Emily, "when we rode up here this morning, we thought we were the tough ones. Funny how wrong you can be." "Strength comes in many forms," Emily responded. "The strongest people I knew in Special Forces weren't always the ones who could fight best. They were the ones who knew how to bring people together, how to turn potential enemies into allies." Tom watched the exchange with approval. "Been fishing this dock for 30 years, he said. "Never thought I'd see the day when a bunch of bikers would be planning community service instead of causing trouble." "Things change," Emily said, casting her line again. "Sometimes people just need to be shown a better way to use their strength." "First thing we need to do," Mike said, pulling out his phone, "is set up a proper meeting with the VA coordinator. I've got a contact there who's been trying to get more community involvement." Emily nodded approvingly. "Start official, that's smart. Shows you're serious about the change." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, looking somewhat uncomfortable. "You think they'll take us seriously? I mean, look at us. We don't exactly scream trustworthy community volunteers." "Actions speak louder than appearances," Emily replied, adjusting her line. "Start showing up consistently. Keep your word, the rest will follow." Tank, who had been quietly reflecting, spoke up. "My brother, before his last deployment, he used to volunteer at the VA. Said it helped him stay grounded, reminded him why he served." "It does," Emily confirmed. "Helping others. It gives purpose to everything we went through. Makes the hard parts mean something." Jenny approached with a fresh round of coffee. "You know, my uncle's the head of the local Veterans Alliance. I could give him a call, let him know about your plans for the ride." Derek straightened up. "That'd be great. Maybe we could coordinate with them, make it a bigger event, more impact." As the group continued planning, another biker who had been quiet until now cleared his throat. I work construction," he said. His cut identified him as Hammer. "Got a whole crew that might be willing to help with home repairs for vets." "Perfect," Emily said. "That's exactly the kind of resource we need. Skills, manpower, tools, all going to help those who served." Tom nodded sagely. "A lot of older vets around here living alone, can't keep up with home maintenance. Something like that could make a real difference." The conversation was interrupted by a strong tug on Marcus's line. He started to jerk the rod, but Emily quickly corrected him. "Easy," she instructed. "Smooth, steady pressure. Let the fish tire itself out naturally." Marcus followed her guidance, his face concentrated. After a few minutes of careful play, they landed an impressive base. As Emily helped him unhook it, Marcus stared at the fish with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said quietly, "my dad used to talk about fishing. Said he wanted to teach me, but I was always too busy trying to be tough, thinking I knew better." Emily handed him the fish. "Never too late to learn. Want to release it?" Marcus nodded, carefully lowering the bass back into the water. They watched it swim away, the moment carrying more weight than just a caught fish. "Staff Sergeant," Mike said, breaking the contemplative silence. "Would you consider being our advisor? Help us set this up right?" Before Emily could respond, Tank quickly added, "We'd make it official. No more trouble at the dock. This would be our base of operations, if Jenny and Carl are okay with it." Jenny, who had been listening nearby, smiled. "Long as you keep buying coffee and bait, I don't see why not." Emily looked at the group of bikers, seeing the genuine desire for change in their faces. "On one condition," she said finally. "Name it," Marcus replied immediately. "You learn to fish properly. All of you. No shortcuts, no showing off. You learn to do it right, with patience and respect for the water. The bikers exchanged glances, then nodded. Deal, Marcus said. Though after what you did to Tank, I don't think any of us would dare take shortcuts anyway. This brought a round of laughter, even from Tank himself. The morning had grown warmer, and more regular fishermen were starting to arrive at the dock. Instead of being intimidated by the bikers' presence, they seemed curious about the unusual gathering. One more thing, Emily added, her voice taking on a more serious tone. This change you're talking about, it has to be real. No halfway measures, no falling back into old habits when things get tough. These veterans were going to help. They've been through enough. They don't need more disappointment. Marcus met her gaze steadily. Staff Sergeant, when my father died, I thought being tough meant making others fear me. Today I learned what real toughness looks like. We won't let you down. A comfortable silence settled over the dock as everyone returned to their fishing. The rhythmic sound of casting lines and gentle waves created a peaceful atmosphere that seemed to encourage reflection. After a while, Tank broke the quiet with an unexpected question. Staff Sergeant, what was it like, being a woman in Special Forces? Emily paused before answering, measuring her words carefully. It wasn't about being a woman or a man. It was about being the right person for the job. Combat medic in Special Forces. You have to be able to fight and heal. Sometimes both at once. Like today, Mike observed. You took Tank down without actually hurting him, then showed him how to fish properly. Fighting and healing. Marcus leaned forward, genuinely interested. My old man never mentioned female operators. Must have changed since his time. The world changes, Emily replied. But the principles stay the same. Protect those who need protection. Stand up to bullies. Help others become stronger. Derek, who had been quiet for a while, suddenly spoke up. You know, we started the Steel Vipers thinking we were all about strength and brotherhood. But we've been doing it wrong, haven't we? Not wrong, Emily corrected. Just misdirected. Real strength isn't about making others fear you. It's about lifting them up when they're down. Jenny returned with sandwiches, settling in to join the conversation. Like what you did for my brother, she said to Emily. Teaching him to fish after he came back from Iraq. It really helped him. The bikers looked at Emily with renewed interest. You've been doing this for a while, haven't you? Marcus asked. Helping veterans? Emily nodded. Everyone needs a purpose after service. This became mine. The dock, the fishing. It's peaceful enough to calm the mind, but engaging enough to keep the darker thoughts at bay. Tank shifted uncomfortably. Those darker thoughts, my brother had them. Before, he trailed off, unable to finish. That's why what we're planning is so important, Emily said firmly. Sometimes all it takes is knowing someone cares, someone understands. Sometimes just having a place to go, something steady to do, can make all the difference. Mike pulled out a notebook and began writing. So we need to organize this properly. Regular fishing sessions for vets, transportation service to VA appointments, home repair crews. Anything else? Support groups, Tom suggested. Not formal therapy, just veterans talking to veterans. Sometimes that's all we need. And families, Tank added quietly. People like me, who lost someone. We need support too. The ideas continued flowing, the group's energy building with each suggestion. Even Hammer, typically the quietest of the bunch, contributed ideas about teaching veterans construction skills. Could help with employment too, he noted. A lot of construction companies looking for reliable workers. Emily watched as the transformation continued to unfold. These men who had arrived planning to intimidate were now actively planning ways to serve their community. It was a reminder of why she'd joined Special Forces in the first place, to make a difference, to help others find their way. You know what else we could do? Jenny suggested. Set up a weekly breakfast here at the dock, before the fishing starts. Give people a chance to connect, share stories. Could do cookouts too, Derek added. Make it a real community thing. Marcus stood up, pacing with excitement. We could organize rides to bring supplies to homebound vets, use our bikes for something good for a change. And the leather cuts, Tank said thoughtfully. Instead of using them to scare people, they could help identify us as people veterans can trust, someone they can call for help. Emily smiled, seeing the genuine transformation taking place. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. Turn everything that was intimidating into something welcoming instead. Tom chuckled from his spot. Never thought I'd see the day when a bunch of bikers would be planning community service with such enthusiasm. People can surprise you, Emily replied. Sometimes they just need a wake-up call, even if it comes in the form of an arm lock. Tank rubbed his arm dramatically, but he was grinning. Best thing that could have happened to us, getting our butts handed to us by a Special Forces veteran, opened our eyes. A sleek blue base boat approached the dock, cutting through the morning water. Carl, the dock manager, was at the helm. He'd been watching the unusual gathering from a distance while doing his morning lake check. As he tied up his boat, his expression was a mix of curiosity and lingering caution. "Everything okay here, Emily?" he called out, his eyes moving warily over the group of bikers. Emily nodded reassuringly. "More than okay, Carl. In fact, we might need to discuss using the dock for some veteran outreach programs." Carl raised his eyebrows, clearly surprised by this development. "These fellows giving you any trouble?" "Not anymore," Tank said, a hint of sheepish pride in his voice. "Staff Sergeant Anderson here showed us a better way." Marcus stood up, approaching Carl with a different kind of confidence than he'd shown earlier. More genuine, less aggressive. "We owe your dock and your people an apology. We've been causing problems, and that stops today." Carl studied him for a moment, then looked at Emily questioningly. She gave him a slight nod, and some of the tension left his shoulders. "Well," Carl said, scratching his head, "suppose everyone deserves a second chance. What kind of programs are we talking about?" As Marcus and Mike began explaining their ideas to Carl, Emily noticed a subtle shift in the group's body language. The bikers were sitting straighter, speaking more clearly, as if their new sense of purpose had already begun changing how they carried themselves. "We could start with weekly fishing sessions for veterans," Mike explained. "Staff Sergeant Anderson would supervise, teach proper techniques, sort of a peaceful way to transition back to civilian life. And we'd provide transportation," Derek added quickly. "A lot of vets don't have ways to get here regularly." Carl listened thoughtfully, leaning against his boat. "Doc could use some maintenance. Been meaning to replace some of these old boards." "We can help with that," Hammer spoke up. "Got the skills and the tools, could make this place really something special." "A proper veterans haven," Tom added. "Like it's been for some of us already, just more organized." Jenny emerged from the bait shop with fresh coffee and a stack of paper. "Thought we might want to start writing some of these ideas down. Make it official." Emily watched as the group gathered around one of the picnic tables, their excitement building as they began putting their plans on paper. The transformation from intimidating gang to community service organization was happening faster than she'd expected, but she could see it was genuine. "Need to think about safety too," Emily interjected, moving to join them at the table. "Some of these veterans will be dealing with PTSD, physical disabilities. We need to make sure the dock is properly equipped." "Could install some better lighting," Hammer suggested. "Make it easier for early morning and evening fishing." "And railings," Tank added, surprising everyone with his thoughtfulness. "My brother, before he passed, he mentioned how hard it was for some of his wounded buddies to keep their balance on docks." Carl nodded approvingly. "Been wanting to make those improvements for years, just never had the manpower or resources." "Well, now you've got both," Marcus declared. "The Steel Viper, no, the Steel Veterans are at your service." Emily noticed Mike writing furiously in his notebook. "What are you working on?" she asked. "Mission statement," he replied without looking up. "Something that captures what we're trying to do here. Figure if we're going to do this right, we need to be clear about our purpose." Jenny peered over his shoulder. "How about including something about turning strength into service?" "Perfect," Mike said, adding it to his notes. "That's exactly what we're doing, isn't it? taking everything we used to use to intimidate and turning it into something helpful instead. A fish tugged at Marcus's line, and Emily moved to help him land it. As they worked together, she could see he was already applying the patience she'd taught him earlier. "You're getting it," she encouraged. "Nice, smooth movements. Let the fish tire itself out." Marcus concentrated on his technique, and soon they were pulling in a good-sized bass. As he held it up, his face showed the same pride she'd seen countless times on the faces of veterans who'd found something meaningful to focus on. "You know," he said, carefully removing the hook, "my dad would have loved this. Not just the fishing, but what we're planning to do here. Think he would have been proud?" Emily met his gaze steadily. "I think he would be proud of the man you're choosing to become right now." The words hit home, and Marcus had to look away for a moment, blinking rapidly. Tank pretended not to notice, suddenly very interested in checking his fishing line. Carl, who had been listening to all the plans, finally spoke up again. "You know, there's an old boathouse on the other side of the dock. Been using it for storage, but if you folks are serious about this program, we could fix it up. Make it a proper meeting space for veterans." The suggestion sparked a new round of excitement. Hammer immediately began assessing what would be needed for renovation, while Derek started sketching a rough layout on the back of Mike's notes. "Could put in a small kitchen," Jenny suggested, "for those breakfasts we talked about. And a quiet room," Emily added. "Sometimes veterans just need a peaceful place to decompress." Tom nodded emphatically. "Could use it for those informal support groups, too. More comfortable than meeting in the VA building." As the planning continued, Emily noticed the sun had risen considerably. The morning's tension seemed like a distant memory now, replaced by purposeful energy and genuine camaraderie. "Staff Sergeant," Tank said suddenly, his voice unusually serious. "Thank you. Not just for not hurting me earlier when you could have, but for showing us a better way to use our strength." "That's what Special Forces taught me," Emily replied. "The strongest warriors aren't always the ones who can fight best. They're the ones who know how to turn potential enemies into allies." The group continued planning well into the morning, their enthusiasm growing with each new idea. What had started as a confrontation had transformed into something none of them could have predicted, the beginning of a genuine mission to serve their community. The sun was high in the sky now, creating shimmering patterns on the lake's surface. More regular fishermen had begun arriving at the dock, and their reactions to the gathering were a mix of surprise and curiosity. Instead of the usual tension that accompanied the bikers' presence, there was something different in the air. "We should probably introduce ourselves properly," Emily suggested, noticing the looks. "Show them the change is real." Marcus nodded, standing up. He approached a couple who had just arrived with their gear, his body language deliberately non-threatening. "Morning," he said, his voice warm. "I know we've caused some trouble here before, but that's changing. We're working with Staff Sergeant Anderson here to turn this place into something special for veterans." The couple exchanged glances, then the man spoke up. "My son's in Afghanistan right now, 3rd tour." "Then you'll be welcome here," Marcus replied sincerely. "We're setting up programs for military families too. No one should have to wait alone while their loved ones serve." The woman's expression softened. That would be wonderful. It gets lonely, especially during deployments." Tank, who had been listening, joined the conversation. "My brother was Marines, didn't make it back, so I understand about waiting, about worry. Maybe we can help each other." The genuine emotion in Tank's voice seemed to convince the couple. They set up their gear nearby, and soon were involved in the ongoing discussion about dock improvements. Jenny emerged from the bait shop again, this time with Carl and a laptop. "Found some grant applications," she announced. "There's funding available for veterans programs. We just need to fill out the paperwork." Mike immediately perked up. "I did grant writing in the Army. Part of my admin duties. Let me take a look." As Mike reviewed the applications, Emily noticed Derek sitting quietly, lost in thought. She moved to sit beside him. "Something on your mind?" Derek hesitated, then spoke softly. "Been thinking about my sister. She's deployed right now, Marines. I've been so caught up in acting tough. I haven't been there for her kids like I should be. It's not too late to change that, Emily replied. Kids are resilient. Show them the uncle they can be proud of. Maybe they could come fishing, Derek suggested, his face brightening. Learn something positive instead of seeing their uncle causing trouble. Tom chimed in from his spot. Could set up a special program for military kids. Teach them fishing, give them something stable while their parents are deployed. The idea caught everyone's attention. Hammer put down his coffee cup, nodding enthusiastically. Could build a small pier just for the kids, make it safer, more accessible. With those railings we talked about, Tank added. And maybe some benches where parents can watch. Carl studied the dock's layout. Could work. There's that shallow area near the boathouse. Perfect spot for teaching kids. Marcus was already sketching on a napkin. We could make it shaped like a boat. Kids would love that. And stock it with smaller fish, Jenny suggested. Make it easier for them to catch something. Build their confidence. Emily watched the ideas flowing, impressed by how quickly the group had shifted from intimidation to innovation. You're all naturals at this, she observed. Planning, organizing, thinking about others. Maybe we always had it in us, Mike replied, looking up from the grant applications. Just needed someone to show us how to use it right. A family with 2 young children walked onto the dock, the kids immediately pointing at the motorcycles parked nearby. Instead of the usual fear, the bikers saw an opportunity. Tank stood up, smiling warmly. Hey kids, want to learn how to fish? Staff Sergeant Anderson here is teaching all of us. The parents looked uncertain until Emily stepped forward, her calm presence reassuring them. We're setting up a community program, she explained. Teaching kids while their military parents are deployed. Would you like to help us test out some ideas? The kids' eyes lit up, and after a moment's hesitation, their parents nodded. Soon, the entire group was involved in giving the children their first fishing lesson. Tank and Derek held the rods steady, while the kids learned to cast. Marcus demonstrated proper bait techniques, and Mike kept everyone laughing with stories about his own first fishing attempts. Look at that, Tom said quietly to Emily. From troublemakers to teachers in one morning. Emily nodded, watching Tank patiently show a little girl how to check her line. Sometimes people just need a new purpose to show their true character. The little girl's squeal of delight as she caught her first fish brought smiles to everyone's faces. Tank beamed with pride as if he'd caught it himself, carefully helping her unhook the small bass. Can we come back tomorrow? The girl asked her parents, clutching her borrowed fishing rod. Actually, Marcus said, looking at Emily for approval. We're planning to set up regular sessions. Would you like to be our first official students? The parents, who had visibly relaxed watching the gentle interactions, agreed enthusiastically. The mother turned out to be a web designer and immediately offered to help create a website for the program. See? Emily said to the group after the family left. This is how community builds. One connection at a time, one act of kindness at a time. Speaking of community, Carl interrupted. I just got off the phone with the Parks Department. They're interested in our veterans program. Want to meet next week to discuss funding. The news energized the group further. Mike dove back into the grant applications with renewed vigor, while Hammer and his construction-minded brothers began making detailed lists of needed materials for the dock improvements. You know what this means? Marcus said, his voice full of purpose. We need to get organized, real organized. No more playing at being tough guys. We've got actual responsibility now. First thing we need is proper structure, Mike said, organizing his papers. Every successful mission needs clear leadership and defined roles. Emily nodded approvingly. Military precision. That's exactly what we need. Marcus looked at his crew, then at Emily. Staff Sergeant, would you consider being our official advisor? Help us set this up right. Keep us on track. I can do that, Emily replied. But remember, this is your program. I'll guide you, but you need to take ownership of it. Tank, who had been unusually thoughtful since his interaction with the children, spoke up. We need committees, different teams for different aspects of the program. Good thinking, Emily agreed. What areas should we cover? The group gathered closer, their excitement building as they began organizing their new mission. Transportation team, Derek suggested, coordinating rides for vets who can't drive themselves. Maintenance crew, Hammer added. Keep the dock and boathouse in shape. Handle renovations. Outreach group, Mike continued. Handle communication with the VA, other veteran organizations. Jenny joined in from her spot. Need a team for the children's program too. Someone to coordinate with schools and military families. Marcus was writing everything down, his face concentrated. What about the fishing instruction itself? We need to get properly trained before we can teach others. I can handle that, Emily said. But it'll take commitment. Learning to fish properly isn't just about technique. It's about patience, respect for the water, understanding the environment. Like everything else we're learning, Tank observed quietly. Tom, who had been listening with approval, added his thoughts. Need someone to coordinate with local businesses too. Build community support, get donations for equipment. And someone to handle the paperwork, Mike said. Grants, registrations, insurance. Can't run a proper program without the administrative side covered. Carl raised an interesting point. What about security? Not to cause trouble, but to prevent it. Keep the dock safe for everyone. The bikers exchanged glances, recognizing the irony. They'd been the source of trouble, and now they'd be preventing it. That's actually perfect, Emily said. Turn your protective instincts towards something positive. Guard the peace instead of disturbing it. Marcus nodded slowly. We know how troublemakers think. Makes us better at spotting potential problems. And dealing with them professionally, Emily added firmly. No more intimidation tactics. Could work with local law enforcement too, Mike suggested. Build relationships instead of avoiding them. The transformation in their thinking was remarkable. Every aspect of their former intimidating presence was being reconstructed into something positive. What about the veterans themselves? Jenny asked. How do we make sure we're meeting their actual needs? Regular meetings, Emily replied. Create a veterans advisory board. Let them tell us what they need, not assume we know. Tank suddenly looked uncomfortable. What about, the darker stuff? PTSD, depression, the things that took my brother. A heavy silence fell over the group. Emily waited a moment before responding. That's where the community we're building becomes crucial. Sometimes just having a place to go, people who understand, can make the difference. But we'll also need proper training, know when to refer people to professional help. Could partner with counselors, Mike suggested. Have them available during our events, but keep it casual, less intimidating than a clinical setting. Marcus was writing furiously now, trying to capture all the ideas. We need a mission statement, he said. Something that explains what we're really about. Strength in service, Jenny suggested. That's what you're becoming. Veterans helping veterans, Tom added. And their families. Emily watched as they worked, seeing the genuine transformation happening. These men who had arrived intending to intimidate were now planning ways to serve their community with the same intensity they'd once used to frighten it. What about our image? Derek asked suddenly. The leather cuts, the bikes. Will that scare people away? Not if we use it right, Emily answered. The bikes can be a draw for younger veterans. The leather cuts can become a symbol of protection instead of intimidation. It's all in how you present yourselves. Could redesign the emblem, Tank suggested. Keep the snake, but make it more about wisdom than danger. My brother used to say the snake and the medical symbol represented healing. The rod of Asclepius, Emily nodded. Symbol of medicine since ancient times. Could work that into your new design. The ideas continued flowing, each suggestion building on the last. The morning's confrontation seemed like a distant memory now, replaced by purposeful planning and genuine enthusiasm. You know what else we need? Jenny said. Regular coffee mornings, before the fishing starts. Give people a chance to connect, share stories. Could do cookouts too, Hammer added. Make it a real community thing. And set up a mentoring program, Mike suggested. Pair experienced veterans with newer ones, help them transition. Carl, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. I've been managing this dock for 20 years, seen a lot of changes, but this could be something special. Emily noticed the sun was high now, the morning almost gone, but instead of the usual post-confrontation tension she'd experienced in combat, there was a sense of hope, of possibility. Staff Sergeant, Marcus said, his voice serious. When we rode up here this morning, we thought we were showing strength. You showed us what real strength looks like. The peaceful morning planning was interrupted by the arrival of several trucks pulling up to the dock. The bikers tensed instinctively, but Emily remained calm. Those would be the weekend regulars, she explained. Perfect opportunity to start changing perceptions. A group of fishermen emerged from the vehicles, their initial expressions wary upon seeing the bikers. Many had experienced the Steel Viper's intimidation tactics before. Marcus stood up, squaring his shoulders. Guess it's time to start making amends, he said, walking toward the newcomers. Emily followed, ready to mediate if necessary. Morning, gentlemen, Marcus called out, his voice deliberately gentle. I know we've caused problems here before, and I want to apologize for that. We're making some changes, working with Staff Sergeant Anderson here to turn this place into a Veterans Outreach Center. The fishermen exchanged skeptical glances until one of them stepped forward. Bill Reynolds, he introduced himself. Did 20 years in the Navy. You're serious about this change? Deadly serious, Tank responded, joining them. Got our wake-up call this morning thanks to the Staff Sergeant. Showed us what real strength looks like. Bill studied them for a moment, then looked at Emily. These boys giving you straight talk, Emily? They are, she confirmed. Sometimes people just need to be shown a better path. Bill nodded slowly. Well, I've got some experience with veteran support programs. Run a few myself through the VFW. Maybe we could collaborate. The tension dissolved as Bill and his friends joined the group, bringing new perspectives and ideas to the planning session. The dock was becoming crowded now, but there was an energy of positive change in the air. You know what we really need? Bill suggested, settling into the discussion. A proper boat for disabled veterans. Something stable, easily accessible. Hammer's eyes lit up. I could modify a pontoon boat, make it wheelchair accessible, add special seating. My construction crew could help with that, another of Bill's friends offered. We've done similar modifications for disability access. The collaboration was growing organically, each new person adding their skills and connections to the mix. Jenny was struggling to keep up with all the notes and contact information being shared. See what's happening here? Emily said quietly to Marcus. This is how community really works. Everyone bringing what they have to offer. Marcus watched as Tank and Bill discussed boat modification details, while Mike and another veteran talked about grant writing strategies. It's like everything we thought made us tough was actually holding us back from something better. Real strength is in building bridges, not walls, Emily replied. You're learning that faster than most. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a police cruiser in the parking lot. The bikers tensed again, but Emily raised a hand. Let me handle this. Officer Sarah Collins stepped out of her cruiser, approaching the dock cautiously. She'd received calls about the Steel Viper's presence, but the scene before her wasn't what she expected. Everything okay here, Emily? She asked, her hand resting casually near her belt. Better than okay, Sarah, Emily responded. We're actually planning a veterans outreach program. The Steel Vipers are becoming the Steel Veterans. Complete transformation. Sarah raised an eyebrow, looking at the gathered group. Instead of the usual chaos the bikers brought, she saw people engaged in serious discussion, sharing coffee and ideas. Is this for real? She asked Marcus directly. He met her gaze steadily. Yes, ma'am. We've seen the error of our ways, thanks to Staff Sergeant Anderson. Want to make things right, use our strength to help the community instead of scaring it. We could use police support, Mike added quickly. Maybe coordinate with your community outreach programs. Sarah listened as they explained their plans, her professional skepticism gradually giving way to cautious optimism. You know, she said finally, We've been looking for ways to better serve our veteran population. This could be interesting. Could also help build trust between law enforcement and the veteran community, Emily suggested. Many veterans struggle with authority after service. Having officers involved in a positive way could help bridge that gap. Sarah pulled out her notebook. I'll talk to my sergeant. We might be able to provide some support, especially for events and security training. As Sarah joined the planning group, Jenny approached with a fresh pot of coffee. Never thought I'd see the day, she said to Emily. Police and bikers working together at my dock. That's the power of having the right mission, Emily replied. People will surprise you when you give them a chance to do good. The morning continued to unfold with new possibilities. Bill's group brought experienced perspectives on veteran needs. Sarah added valuable insights about community policing and safety, and the bikers' enthusiasm seemed to grow with each new suggestion. What about PTSD awareness? Sarah asked during a discussion about training. We've had some difficult situations with veterans in crisis. Having a support network could make a real difference. Tank nodded solemnly. That's close to home for some of us. Lost my brother to those invisible wounds. If we can help prevent that from happening to someone else. We could organize training sessions, Emily suggested. Help people recognize the signs, know how to respond appropriately. Include families, too. They're often the first to notice changes. Bill pulled out his phone. I know some excellent trainers through the VA. They'd probably be willing to help set up a program. The discussion continued, each topic building on the last, creating a comprehensive plan for community support. What had started as a confrontation was evolving into something none of them could have predicted, a true transformation of purpose. As the afternoon approached, dark clouds began gathering over the lake, bringing with them a cool breeze. Instead of dispersing, the growing group moved their discussion into the bait shop where Jenny had cleared space for everyone. Weather's always been our signal, Emily explained, watching the clouds. Time to wrap up fishing, but perfect for finalizing plans. Inside the shop, Marcus stood before the assembled group, looking more like a leader than a gang boss now. All right, let's make this official. Mike, what have we got so far? Mike reviewed his notes, now several pages long. We've got commitments from Bill's VFW group, Officer Collins for police support, Hammer's construction crew, and Jenny's offered the bait shop as our headquarters. Don't forget Carl's boathouse, Tank added. That'll be our main renovation project. Sarah, the police officer, raised her hand. Just got a text from my sergeant. He's interested in meeting tomorrow to discuss how the department can support this initiative. Moving fast, Emily observed. That's good. Momentum is important in any mission. Marcus nodded, then addressed his crew. Boys, this is our last chance to back out. From here on, we're committing to real change. No more intimidation, no more trouble. We're becoming something better. The bikers exchanged glances. Then Tank stood up. My brother, he started, his voice catching. Before we lost him, he always said I had potential to do more. This is that more. I'm all in. One by one, the others stood, declaring their commitment. Even Ghost, usually the quietest, spoke up. Been running from my own service memories for too long. Time to use them to help others instead. Bill, listening from his corner, smiled approvingly. You know, when I first saw you boys roll up this morning, I thought we were in for trouble. Now look at us. Planning the biggest veterans support program this lake has ever seen. Jenny emerged from behind the counter with a large map of the dock area. Carl and I marked potential renovation spots. Hammer, what do you think about starting with the boathouse? Hammer studied the map intently. Could have it ready in a month with enough help. Make it real nice. Meeting room, kitchen, quiet space for veterans who need it. Don't forget the children's fishing pier, Derek reminded them. That should be priority too. Emily watched as they gathered around the map, their earlier aggression completely transformed into constructive energy. The sound of thunder rolled across the lake, but no one seemed to notice. Staff Sergeant, Marcus said quietly, moving to stand beside her. Think we can really pull this off? Emily turned to him, seeing the genuine concern in his eyes. You already are. Look around. Police, veterans, bikers, community members, all working together. That's more than pulling it off. That's creating real change. Tank joined them, rubbing his arm unconsciously where Emily had taken him down earlier. Still can't believe how this day turned out. Came here looking for trouble. Found a purpose instead. Sometimes the best victories come from the battles we choose not to fight, Emily replied. Mike called everyone's attention, holding up his notebook. Got our mission statement draft. The Steel Veterans, transforming strength into service, standing together to support our military community through friendship, understanding, and active support. The room fell silent, letting the words sink in. Marcus was the first to speak. That's who we are now. That's who we choose to be. Officer Collins, who had been taking notes on her phone, looked up. Just got approval from the department. We can provide official support for your events, help with security training, even assist with fundraising. Speaking of fundraising, Bill interjected, my VFW chapter's annual dinner is next week. Think it's time the community met the new Steel Veterans. Show them this change is real. Jenny started writing on a large whiteboard she'd pulled from storage. Let's set some dates. When do we start renovation? When's our first veterans fishing program? Need to coordinate everything. The planning continued with military precision, each person contributing their expertise. Hammer detailed construction plans, Mike organized administrative tasks, and Tank, surprising everyone, showed a natural talent for coordinating the children's program. You know what this reminds me of? Emily said to the group. Mission planning and special forces. Everyone bringing their unique skills, working toward a common goal. Except this time, Marcus replied, we're building something instead of preparing for combat. The storm outside grew stronger, rain now beating against the shop's windows, but inside, the atmosphere was warm with purpose and possibility. One more thing, Emily announced. Before we finish today's planning, I want each of you to share why you're really here. Not what you're going to do, but why it matters to you personally. The room grew quiet. Tank spoke first, his voice soft but steady. For my brother, so maybe another family won't have to go through what we did. Derek followed. For my sister overseas, and her kids who need good role models. One by one, they shared their personal connections to the mission, each story adding depth to their commitment. When they finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the shop. That, Emily said firmly, is your real strength. Not the bikes, not the leather, not the tough guy act. This commitment to something bigger than yourselves, this is what real power looks like. As the storm began to pass, sunlight breaking through the clouds, the group emerged from the bait shop to find the lake transformed. The water sparkled with renewed clarity, as if nature itself was reflecting the change that had occurred that day. Look at that rainbow, Jenny said, pointing across the lake where vibrant colors arched over the water. Quite a sign for a new beginning, Emily observed, watching as her unlikely new allies took in the sight. Marcus stepped forward, his voice carrying a weight of responsibility that hadn't been there that morning. Staff Sergeant, before we all head out, I need to say something to everyone. The group gathered around as Marcus removed his leather cut, holding it thoughtfully. This morning, we rode in here thinking we were something special, thought strength meant making others fear us. Staff Sergeant Anderson showed us what real strength looks like, and I don't think any of us will ever be the same. Tank moved to stand beside him, followed by the other bikers. One by one, they removed their cuts, forming a circle around Emily. These cuts, Marcus continued, used to represent fear. From today forward, they'll represent service. Every time we wear them, we'll remember this morning, and the lesson we learned about true strength. Emily nodded approvingly. The strongest warriors aren't the ones who can fight best. They're the ones who know how to bring peace. Officer Collins, who had stayed to see things through, stepped forward. My department will be watching, but not like before. We'll be watching to see how we can help, how we can support what you're building here. Bill joined in, his voice carrying the weight of experience. VFW's behind you too. You boys showed real courage today, not in trying to intimidate, but in being willing to change. Tom, who had witnessed the entire transformation, spoke up from his usual spot. Been fishing this dock for 30 years. Seen a lot of sunrises, a lot of changes. But this is something special. Jenny wiped tears from her eyes as she distributed a final round of coffee. To think, I was scared when I saw you all ride up this morning. Now I can't wait to see what this place becomes. Carl, who had returned to check on things, added his thoughts. Boathouse renovation starts Monday. Already got calls from other veterans wanting to help. And I'll be here, Emily said firmly. Every step of the way, but not as your leader, as your advisor. This is your mission now. Marcus looked at his crew, then back at Emily. Last thing we need to do today, he said, reaching into his bike's saddlebag. He pulled out the Steel Viper's original emblem patch. Time to design something new, something that honors what we're becoming. Mike, ever prepared, already had sketches ready. Combined the medical staff with the snake, added symbols for service and strength. What do you think? The design passed around the group, each person adding suggestions until it truly represented their new identity. The Steel Veterans were born. Tomorrow, Marcus announced, we start for real. Renovation plans, program development, community outreach. But today we remember how it started. How one person's courage to stand up to us became the wake-up call we needed. Emily shook her head. I just showed you what was already there. The courage to change, that came from you. As the group began to disperse, making plans to meet the next day, Tank lingered behind. Staff Sergeant, he said quietly, thank you. Not just for the arm lock that knocked some sense into me, but for seeing something in us worth saving. That's what Special Forces taught me, Emily replied. Every mission has multiple solutions. Sometimes the best one isn't about fighting. It's about transformation. The bikers mounted their motorcycles, but this time there was no aggressive revving, no intimidating displays. They started their bikes quietly, respectfully. Marcus turned to Emily one last time. See you tomorrow, Staff Sergeant. Emily smiled, looking out over the lake that had been her sanctuary and was now becoming something even more meaningful. Wouldn't miss it. A lot of fishing lessons to teach, a lot of lives to change. As the group rode away, their leather cuts catching the late afternoon sun, Jenny stood beside Emily on the dock. You know, when they first rolled up this morning, I thought it was going to be the worst day ever. Instead, Emily replied, casting her line one last time into the golden water. It became the beginning of something extraordinary. Tom joined them, his weathered face peaceful. Funny how life works. Sometimes the biggest threats turn into the greatest allies. That's the thing about fishing, Emily said, watching her line cut through the reflected sunset. You never know what you're going to pull up until you cast your line. Sometimes what looks like trouble on the surface turns out to be exactly what everyone needed. The lake grew quiet as evening approached, but it was a different kind of quiet than before. Not the tense silence of intimidation, but the peaceful quiet of promise. The dock that had started the day as a battlefield had transformed into a foundation for hope. Tomorrow, Emily said softly, reeling in her line, we start building something new. But today we remember that sometimes the greatest victories come from the battles we choose not to fight. The sun set over Mountain Lake, casting long shadows across the water. The dock stood empty now, but it hummed with the energy of possibility, of transformation, of strength redefined. What had begun as a confrontation had ended as a revelation. That true power lies not in the ability to intimidate, but in the courage to change.